I'm Suzanne Murdoch, MD and co-founder of the Hub Newry, and welcome to Series 4 of the Powering Productivity podcast. Each episode, I explore the stories and insights of SME co-working and flexible workspace operators from around the globe, focusing particularly on regional and neighbourhood spaces and the communities that they drive forward. I chat around the inclusivity, genuine connections, clarity and purpose, and positive impacts that they bring. So let's get started.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy McInally. I'm an industry writer and the founder of the Inclusive Coworker, a platform that explores the human side of co-working, and I also work with some of the leading suppliers of the flexible workspace industry. Today, Suzanne and I wanted to have a really open, honest conversation about something we both see and feel deeply: the hidden pressures of running a co-working space, the emotional loads, the energy it takes, and how we protect ourselves whilst supporting everyone else. So, Suzanne, you've been in this world for over a decade. Would you like to introduce yourself and share a little bit more about what you do?
Thank you, Lucy. So I'm Suzanne Murdoch, co-founder of the Hub Newry in Northern Ireland. I'm also a coach mentor for independent local co-working and flex operators who really want to build sustainable people-first businesses, I guess, without burning out. I've spent more than a decade now trying to build and run spaces myself, co-working spaces, and very much balancing the strategy, the systems, and also the human side of co-working, and learning just how heavy that load can sometimes feel. So now my work is very much focused around where strategy meets heart in the co-working, helping leaders bring that clarity, the structure, and the care together so that they can really build those thriving businesses that feel right for them and that actually work for both them and their businesses.
I love that. So what we're going to explore today is around running a co-working space. It looks simple from the outside. Open the doors, fill the desks, and the community takes care of itself. But for most neighbourhood and regional operators, the reality is far heavier. There's that constant juggle of finances, marketing, maintenance, member support, and emotional labour, often with little or no team behind you. It's no surprise that so many operators feel the warning signs of burning out.
Absolutely. And I think what makes it harder, Lucy, is those highs and lows can often look quite invisible to other people. You've got those full up buildings or what looks like a full up building. There's lots and lots of members in the space as well. But the operator's still carrying that huge load inside, keeping the momentum going. They're unblocking toilets, they're trying to keep the member makeup and the culture and that vibe going, doing their accounts, etc. There's so much going on behind the scenes that often you almost want to hit that pause button, but you're just too scared to. This catastrophe might happen. There's no one there. If you want to go away, who's going to step in and take that load off you? So there's that all that invisible side. And it's not just, from my experience, it's not just the practical work. It's that real human experience, the feelings, the emotions that can take that physical toll. And sometimes that load can feel so heavy that you start doubting yourself. You get that imposter syndrome. And especially when you start seeing things like you're looking right, left over your shoulder all the time at what feels like competition. But we're in an industry where that competition, it should really be more of a collaborative industry. And it is. I think sometimes when you're holding that much, you start feeling them as more of a threat. So that to me are those trigger signs where you need to kind of check in with yourself and try and do something to share that load.
Yeah,
It's having that open, honest conversation today about what we're going through as community managers and how we can reflect on that. We don't often get the safe space to sit on a one-to-one basis where someone's going to listen to us and we can reflect, we can get curious about our challenges and how we can turn them into more solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen this from the other side as well, I guess, running a business, micro business. You mentioned that sort of imposter syndrome, and those sort of feelings that I guess, and we'll dive into this a little bit more when you're sort of managing everything by yourself, and that kind of loneliness as well that kind of manifests in that. It can feel quite challenging. But we also know that from a co-working perspective that the community magic is real, and it doesn't just happen by chance. And operators and community manager also often quietly holding so much, as well as co-working operators like yourself. So in this conversation, Suzanne and I will be sharing some of the biggest pressures that operators face, and importantly, the strategies that can stop those pressures from tipping into burnout.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I guess we're exploring those 5 quite big themes that come up again and again when I talk to a lot of operators, certainly in the local neighbourhood side of things, be it through the podcast I host or just relationships are built over the years. Very much like we said, the invisible load, the community challenges, money stress,
Mm.
juggling all the hats and the whole energy side of things, and particularly the marketing aspects, which I know, Lucy, you want to touch on, and the loneliness of leadership. And yeah, each one has its own traps and challenges, but it's really important that we flip that and look at the solutions, um, and very much making a difference between that burnout and building a really thriving, sustainable, and really special type of business. Because let's face it, it's a people business, it's a hospitality business, and it's very much, for me, it's very much heart led.
I love that. So let's start with what you call the invisible load. Why do so many co-working operators feel like they're carrying everything, even when the space looks successful from the outside?
Oh, I could say so much about this. For me, it's very much about, I'm one of those people who really wants to be in control of everything, if I
Yeah.
can do, everything that's going on in here, everything that's going on out there. Not so much the members and what they're doing because it's their space. We've laid the foundations for them. But I think it comes down to momentum. Everything's going so quickly. Could be lots of different things happening every single day. So actually, you can't control a lot of it. Um, so that's sometimes a starting point for me is the lack of control, which can be quite positive. But it's the things that you've just got to keep on top of. So the marketing, the member retention, the connection with members, really getting to know them and building those relationships, which is hugely important to me because if you don't know them, you can't anticipate the next requirements. Um, so there's that side of things. And often operators are running other businesses as well if you're in a small space. So there's that side of things. The costs are continually going up. What else? Burnout risks as well if there's that constant mental load. And the physical load, you're often a solopreneur or just a small team. And this goes for any micro business owner as well. It's not just co-working. And you don't know what you don't know. It's that compliance, the ever changing compliance and servicing and customer requirements, the industry evolving as well. There's lots and lots going on.
Yeah, it sounds like there's so much, and I can kind of relate in that sense of being a business owner. And I guess when there's so many different tasks that you're working on, it's sort of what do you start with first? What do you prioritize? Who do you prioritize as well? You mentioned your community obviously comes first, and the people's needs. And I guess there's so much in terms of you want to get to know your members so much deeper, but also you've got to sort of run a business and manage all those different things as well.
And also, Lucy, there's that human aspect of the unexpected. It's
Right.
it's real life here. We don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. What could happen in the space to one of your members, what they might ask for, how they might need help, and you feel that as the community manager, you're the one holding the space. You're there for them, so that you have to drop things when they need you.
Mm. And that's a lot as well. So you mentioned that kind of juggle. It must be a lot of pressure. In terms of sort of like some of the solutions that um, you think other community managers and co-working operators can maybe think about to manage this sort of workload and the invisible load, what would you suggest for that?
For me, it comes back to clarity in a way where you you think back and try and remember why you set up the space in the first place. You're there to serve others, really.
Yeah.
And where is your heart? Are you serving the right member base? Does it align with your values? Are they the right people? Do you fit with that? Or have you kind of digressed a little bit? And do you think it could be to do with that? Um, and understanding, is it about the overwhelm? Is it about the amount that you're juggling, or is it more the environment isn't really aligned with you right now.
Mm.
So there's different elements there. But if we look back at the clarity, maybe the time management side of things, I would quite often, maybe once every 6 months, keep a diary of absolutely everything I'm doing within the day, down to every 10 minutes, and see
Mm.
where your time's being sucked, and then look at that and think, okay, can I block those times out in my diary? So the deep work, for example, think about where your highest energy is. Is it during the morning, the afternoon, and maybe block 2 hours out then? And get more structured. So if you've got to do more community onboarding and relationship building, maybe put that during the lunchtime. It's just different ways of how you work.
I love that.
And knowing your boundaries as well. Learning to say no. I know it sounds so simple, but it's really not. It's not easy to say no.
Especially when you are someone who is very social and is someone who's people facing as well. And I guess kind of there's that balance between, like you were saying, sort of dropping things to serve your community, but also, I guess, like making sure that you're protecting your own energy and time as well.
Yeah, I think so. Or even if if you can't say no to someone, give them a time that's going to work for you, where
Yeah.
you're totally in the zone with them and you're not being distracted by something else or other deadlines. Um, Checklists as well. I have 3 different checklists. I've got my priorities for that day. I have a work in progress. I also have a wish list of huge projects broken down, which sometimes is very difficult to get to, but occasionally I do. But also I have an admin list of things I can easily check off if I'm in one of those low battery moods or procrastination moods. So at least I feel I've done something that
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And then knowing, I think it's really important to have champions, to have
Yeah.
people that back you no matter what you're going through, that are honest with you, that fill your battery, that give you energy and really light you up,
Yeah.
and that celebrate you as well. So it could be members within your space, it could be mentors that you've worked with over the years, it could be a family member, but someone that you can be really honest and open with.
Yeah, I love that. And I think we've spoken about before about that sort of challenges of perhaps when you're a little bit more introverted as well, that your battery drains a lot faster than perhaps extroverts, and that can be really challenging when you're surrounded by people or you're sort of like, involved so many people and that's what people facing role. But at the end of the day, like we all know that community magic is really special and we've all felt that as well. So
It's
it's
actually on that point, Lucy. It's amazing the amount of little local and independent operators I've spoken to who are introverts as well. I think
Mhm.
people naturally assume that if you're going to run a co-working space, you're this extroverted person. It doesn't always work out like that.
No, that's really interesting. I think I've spoken to a few people who have started co-working spaces because they have done it for themselves, and it's like they've been working for themselves. They've worked from home, and they've sort of experienced that loneliness at home, and they've felt like, okay, I don't need this. Like, I really want to be around people, but at this end of the day, like, still sort of feeling like introverts as well. So it's really interesting that you've picked up on that as well, and you've met people in a similar situation, and yeah, I wonder why that is. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think also when it comes to the different things you have to do as well that you're trying to fit in, it's the networking, the marketing side. A lot of introverts would struggle with the networking side. So it's finding the right platform for your voice, being it podcasts where it's just on a one-to-one or
Mm.
virtual networking, which is also easier to fit in. So that can help with the time management as well. So
Mm.
yeah, you're constantly being seen, but you're doing it on a platform that works for you.
Mm.
And the other thing just quickly is in terms of helping with that juggle, we put together the ISO, I always get this wrong, 2001, 2015. It's like a process management system, very much based for small operators, small independent operators. And it's really, really helped. So we look at 360-degree feedback from members, stakeholders, from our side, etc. And we're constantly checking in and engaging with our members and stakeholders to see how things are and how we can improve stuff. So it helps with the compliance, the servicing, making sure that we don't miss anything there. I think putting small processes in place for different elements of your business has really, really helped me.
That's
And
great.
it's something that can be rolled out quite easily to other operators and tweaked.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't know about this iOS, and I think that's another great kind of tool to have in your toolkit, I guess. We've got processes, having champions and people to lean on, having perhaps a checklist and keeping a diary as well. I think the diary thing is really cool, and I'm sure there's must be so much. Like, have you kept a diary? Like, have you kind of looked back through it and seen what you've written maybe in the first few years of opening the space to and the
Yeah.
difference now? Yeah.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me was procrastination.
Ah,
And the
interesting.
email checks are completely unnecessary every
Mm,
half an hour because nothing's, unless it's life threatening, you really don't need to keep going back to phones and checking everything. But the
mm,
management, the quality management system has really helped that structure. And also being able to look back on it and see where the tweaks need to come in and what we've missed, plug gaps, and how we need to evolve things.
right, that's really good advice. Moving on to community. So, community is the buzzword in co-working, but it can also be the hardest part. What makes building and holding community so emotionally taxing?
It's not always taxing. It's again comes back to remembering why you started in the first place and who do you want to be working with, who do you want to surround yourself with, who do you want to serve. Where I think it's important to keep checking in and making sure that your heart's still in it
Mm,
because we're all humans as we know and we can change focus. I don't think our values change, but I think our focus can sometimes change and we can be pulled in different directions. So making sure that the member makeup is still aligned
mm,
to you, to your business, and to the community as a whole, because that can really change the vibe of the place
mm,
and the culture of a place. I think if you've previously, we've had more corporate clients, maybe bigger teams, and they just haven't sat right with the community. They've almost taken over the culture and everyone feels on edge. That trust goes. And then once that trust is gone, the whole place just feels completely flat.
yeah. Is that like, are there big corporates that have come in? Is that because there's lots of people in their team and that's sort of, yeah, switched up their dynamic?
Yeah, yeah. And now our member makeup here, like we've been going for 13 years, so we've kind of evolved. We were one big open plan space at the start, and now we've got more private spaces, but still with that community feel. So now we've got quite a diverse member makeup of corporate remote workers, but they won't work for a corporate, but they're local to this area.
Mhm.
And then we've got more local freelancers and local small businesses. So there's a really diverse mix, and it gels quite well.
Yeah,
But I
that's
think that whole onboarding part and getting to know each other and doing that from both perspectives is very, very helpful. So you
yeah, and I
don't
guess, sorry, yeah.
so you don't um, mess up that alignment. So
Yeah.
it's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I guess thinking about the sort of community manager side, you're the operator of the hub, but also you are the community manager. How much do you get involved in the community, and how much time do you spend with them? We talked about boundaries earlier. I guess I think about my experiences of being a co-working member and the community manager who was at the space I was part of, who was so involved with our specific kind of group of freelancers, and like I would call her a friend. So, but I can imagine that kind of pressure for somebody who's it's their job to be a community manager can be quite yeah, overwhelming at times when it's like, is this, should I be acting like a friend? Like, what sort of support should I give people? I think these were some of the conversations that were being had after there was like a comms event that co-workies did. And then quite a few people met at Juicy a couple of weeks ago. And some of the people who had been to Brighton had said, that they had mentioned some of the topics of the conversation around like that sort of, yeah, the pressure of being a community manager and what that sort of entails.
Yeah. So I would always check in with people at least once a week. Now we've more private office spaces, and a lot of the people that we work with don't want to be disturbed each day. They're really, really busy, but they still want that community vibe. And we've three different floors. I'm on the top floor, but I would always walk around the building and my door's always open. But I would make sure at least once a week I'm checking in with them and having conversations, seeing how everything's going. And they might not always be there. Sometimes the building can be quite empty throughout the summer. It's like that. But it's funny how that shows up for me in my body. If I haven't checked in with people, certainly for more than a couple of weeks, even if they're not here, so I can't physically do that, I can feel it.
Mm.
Something just doesn't feel quite right. Like I feel disconnected. And even in COVID, when members weren't meant to be coming in, there was a couple of us here, and it just felt more safe, more secure, and reassuring because you knew at least well, you can't go in their offices through COVID, but you knew they were next door and someone was there. So yeah, it shows up in different ways.
That's really interesting. Would you call some of your community members friends, or is that
Oh
kind of
yeah,
fine? Yeah.
totally. Yeah, some of them have been with us since the start, and we've seen each other's kids grow up, and now we're on a second generation of kids that have grown up, they've got their own jobs and they're working with us.
Oh, that's so lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the sort of takeaways from this kind of community piece, boundaries are really vital. We spoke about that a little bit earlier, and you mentioned about checking in with your community members as well. But also, I guess there's an element of if there is that lovely dynamic and you get on really well, and like you said, if your kids are like growing up together, then it is more, and it also feels like, and I don't know if this is because you are a regional space, and there's I guess there's that community piece that sort of extends beyond your space in your community. Like, you bump into your community members when you're out and about in town and things like that?
Yeah, and the community isn't just the people within the four walls, it's the
Yeah.
businesses outside as well that we've got to know over the years and are very much a part of it. So when we
Mhm.
have events, they all come. But it also, another point is the member makeup does change and people do move on. And often it's for really positive reasons. You know, they've outgrown the space.
Yeah.
And so we celebrate that. Yeah, deep down, it hurts inside, and yeah, it's going to cause turmoil because you have to replace them, and
Yeah.
you hope, dear God, that you replace them with the right people that are going to fit in and help everyone else, um, and really fit into the culture. So there's different emotions that go on all the time, and I think that comes back to this is a business with heart. It's a people-led business, and you just have to let those emotions flow.
Yeah, absolutely. And it must feel really special to know that you have played a really big role in a business's success if they're sort of growing out of your space.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Can't say it doesn't hurt sometimes, but most of the time it's for positive reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And before moving on to our next section, what key sort of tools, I guess, or takeaways would you advise other co-working operators, excuse me, or community managers to sort of manage the community piece?
I think it comes down to boundaries again. Don't let some of them do suck a lot of your time out, but I think it's almost putting
Mhm.
soft rules in place as to when they can approach you and, you know, how much time you've got for yourself. You have to have a boundary on that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can get quite personal. Um, I'm personally trained in the mental health first aid side of things, so it can that has really helped. And I think being more aware of what's happening around you. It's almost having that gut instinct, that intuition. You know, if you know your members
Yeah.
really well, you'll know when something doesn't feel quite right.
Mm.
Just reaching out and saying, "Are
Mhm.
you okay?" They might say, "Yeah, I'm fine," but you just know, so you just say, "Are you sure you're okay? You know, I'm here if you need me." And just let them know that they're not necessarily going to open up there and then.
Yeah, that's
Um,
really interesting. Sorry, the community manager at the space I was part of, she would always know when something was up with someone. She'd always be like, "How are you really?" She wasn't just like, and you're like, "I'm fine." She's like, "No, you're not. Like, let's talk about it."
yeah,
But I guess it's how much of somebody else's sort of emotional situation, whether that might be something quite positive, but also like when things are getting a bit tough for them, perhaps that's something to do with their business. Like, how much do you take on as a community manager or operator?
yeah. But I think you have to protect yourself as well
Yeah,
from some of that and be able to signpost out if you need to.
definitely. Not take it all home with you, I guess. So
But also having that peer group around you and the champions, so other operators, alliances, people that are going to support you and people that you can reach out to if you can't help with a certain problem or if you do feel like you're burning out.
that's really interesting. Yeah. Do you have a alliance or a group or a community that you recommend other operators be a part of?
Yeah, I love the Juicy. There's Flexer. There's Bernie Mitchell's. What's his help me out here? What's his unreasonable connections?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
European Co-working Assembly, there's lots and lots out there.
Amazing. Yeah. And definitely love the communities that some of the communities you mentioned. Everyone seems very collaborative and able to share and it is that sort of collaboration over competition mindset. I think that's what makes our industry so special as well.
And we're not going through it alone. When you talk to these people, everyone says the same thing. They've all got the same worries.
Yeah, they do. Moving on to money markets and mental strain. So cash flow pressures seem to hit particularly hard in neighborhood co-working. What happens when empty offices, unpaid invoices, or unexpected costs pile up?
Oh my God. Okay.
This
This
is
is
a
a
big
big one.
section.
Yes. Cash flow is always a worry
I
because
can imagine.
for a lot of us local operators, the margins can be quite tight. We haven't got the deep pockets that the bigger branded spaces have got that are continuously investing. So you feel the pressure there. You feel like you should be continually investing money that you don't have on infrastructure, the hospitality side, these great coffee machines and
Yeah.
the on-site cafes, the 5-star treatment.
Yeah.
It just can't happen for smaller operators. So yeah,
No.
and obviously the overheads are continually going up and up with cleaners, electric, etc. So yeah, that's a really big part of the stress load. And I guess you constantly have to think about, okay, where can we maybe cut costs like subscriptions? Have a constantly reviewing those. I would review those maybe every three at least 6 months to
Yeah.
see, okay, what can we cut that we're not actually using, and
Mm.
really rationalizing where you're spending your money and what you're spending it on and what the purpose is.
Right, absolutely. And you mentioned about like not perhaps not having the big coffee machines and those sort of amenities. Do people expect that in your space or in your sort of area?
It's 50-50. A lot of the corporate members who've worked in the bigger branded spaces in city centres assume that they're going to get a lot of the same stuff.
Mm.
But I think when they realise that the member fees aren't quite so much, and they come and look at the space, they see another side. There's that more family relationship side of things.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's a bit chicken and egg, but I think they just have to realise that we can't offer exactly the same facilities. We do try and replicate them, but maybe in different forms.
Mm. Yeah. Do you do any sort of discounts or membership perks, sort of, I guess, in collaboration with local businesses?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so there's the local hotel. If people are staying over and they're working.
Mm.
Yeah, there's lots of different things. And then the other thing that can stress you out a bit is, like I mentioned before, you don't know what you don't know. So all
Mm.
the compliance, there's the HMRC anti-money laundering compliance, for example, that's
Mm.
consistently changing. You've got your VAT, your tax, your PAYE that you've got to keep on top of.
Yeah.
So I think if you can really understand your strengths and maybe your weaknesses and delegate out some of that to maybe accountants, at least they can keep on top of that for you. And you don't have to pay more than you need to. I think if you're a smaller operator and you've got those management systems in place, the quality management systems and the checkpoints, then your overheads aren't going to be quite so much in theory.
I guess knowing your numbers and like
Yeah.
trusting, having a trusted accountant or financial advisor who can support you in making those decisions as well.
Yeah. Having your management accounts, knowing your forecasts, your budgets, your cash flows in any 6-month period.
Mm.
And trying to have that, I know it's really difficult, but trying to have that cash flow buffer as well for um, sudden outgoings or repairs and that sort of stuff. What else?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's the continual pressure from the larger branded spaces that you need to invest. It is a pressure point. I don't think that really goes away. And also the economic cycles with demand for space. So in the summer, that demand can go down. And I guess diversifying your revenue streams can be a big help there,
That's important. Yeah, definitely.
because it can certainly hit you if you're just doing hot desking. It can hit you at certain times.
Yeah, and in terms of that, let's dive into that a little bit more. What would you recommend operators do? I guess you kind of mentioned that a lot of operators are actually running other businesses as well. So is that part of that diversification process, or is this more within the space itself and kind of thinking of new ways to monetize different spaces?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of both. If you're working on your own, depending on the size of your business, you can't necessarily run another business. That's a very personal thing.
Yeah.
But diversifying the revenue streams within your buildings, and what you offer, whether you can offer more virtual help outside to other members,
Mm.
see offering, try and keeping your space quite flexible. So maybe a private office could become a meeting room. It could become a podcasting room. There's lots of different things. Are you offering registered and virtual office address facilities? Yes, that comes with a lot of compliance, but it can be quite a good little learner when you need it.
Yeah, that's so true. I know that I think there was in the Bernie and Janine's kind of WhatsApp group a conversation around all the sort of compliance around that. But
Yeah.
I guess once again, like you kind of align with the right people who can support you in that process as well, then that's really good. Have you found like a revenue stream at the moment that's working quite well for you that you've like evolved into or pivoted from something else into this revenue stream?
So I would do coaching and mentoring. That's another one. The registered office address facility has always been a good revenue stream. Now we've someone else that manages through another business.
Mhm.
But we kind of dovetail our services, so we help each other out there. And another one actually is referral schemes for maybe your member businesses or local businesses. That can be a little income stream as well.
That's interesting. Um, in terms of, I guess at the moment, a lot of operators are experiencing that financial stress, especially the sort of on the smaller business side. What advice would you give somebody who's sort of worried about their cash flow and their and potential sort of future forecasting for their finances?
If you can, I would always ask an accountant to help out there. I think
Mm.
they can see the patterns of what's happening if they look back maybe a year or two, and then they can help project. I think really understanding the economic um, outlook in terms of micro, macro, and the local and the bigger picture, so you know where those costs could be coming from, and also try and keep on top of your infrastructure. Don't let anything get worn out. Keep on
Mm.
top of your servers and that sort of stuff, because you don't want a massive outlay if something suddenly goes wrong. And
Good.
yes, understand your revenue streams. Have something in your back pocket if you need to pull on that.
Yeah, so buffers are important. I guess also thinking about that financial stress is not a personal failing as well.
No, no, definitely not. I've been guilty of that so many times.
I'm sure a lot of people have. It's a lot to take on, isn't it?
But also, you learn so much from it as well. And you don't let that happen again. When you
Mm.
move forward, you get more ideas and talk to people, share what you're going through. Just be honest.
Mm.
Because a lot of others are going through the same thing.
Mm. So find your champions again is a
Yeah.
really important one. Shall we move on to the marketing section?
Yes,
All
because
right.
that's definitely your baby, Lucy. I know that's a big, big part of my day-to-day responsibilities, and it never seems to go away. So
No, and
how
it's
can
so
we help?
yeah. So we're both going to the Cat Johnson content session later, which is going to be so helpful on learning how other people are tapping into content. I think I read somewhere that no one told me that running a business would involve becoming a content creator, and that's certainly what running a business seems to have been, especially because there's lots of shifts in marketing trends and the ways that people are communicating with their potential audience. It's now like no longer enough to just put out a series of Instagram posts or LinkedIn posts that don't really sort of tap into people's pain points and really engage with people. And as much as we build communities like in co-working spaces, there's also an element of building like an online community as well, which is just an added job in itself that I feel many of us running businesses, whether it's a physical co-working space or even as being a freelancer as well, like no one expected, I think. And I think that's come from these sort of shifts in marketing as well, and the sort of plethora of platforms and channels that we can tap into. So there are so many roles involved. And so Suzanne, from your perspective, which hats kind of weigh the heaviest?
Where to be at what time, where to put your energy. Have you even got energy to write this content? Because I feel I really have to be in the zone to write good content.
Yeah.
Are we going to use AI? How much of it do we use? And how are we going to humanize a lot of what we're writing? And also, what are the right platforms to be on for your personality?
Mm.
So in terms of, are we gonna, if you're going to do video, but you're an introvert, how will that work?
Mm.
Personally, for me, podcasting's worked really well because I'm definitely an introvert, and I found my voice through that because I would never really speak into camera. I've shied away from public speaking all my life, but podcasting has allowed me to build that up using baby steps.
Yeah, you're real natural on your podcast as well.
But if you ask me to stand up on that stage, I have to have something I'm really passionate about to speak about. Otherwise, I'll just flake out.
I'm exactly the same. Writing is definitely my outlet. I definitely stumble over my words when I'm talking, and it's real learning to. I guess it's the more you do it, the more you feel
Yeah.
comfortable doing it as well. And I guess sharing those same messages. And like you said, if there's something you're passionate about and you're sharing, which is very much the case in the co-working world. But I guess advice for operators is kind of leaning into the formats that work best for you. I guess don't be don't yeah, it's difficult because there are those trends, and that you mentioned the video kind of side of things earlier, because so much we see now on Instagram, for example, is all video. But you don't have to sort of lean into those trends if you don't feel comfortable doing that.
And also the repurposing. Find your find your platform, your outlet, and then repurpose that. So if you are doing video, you're podcasting, pull out those the MP3 sounds, the videos, the
Yeah,
transcripts, and you can turn them into anything just with that one piece of content, which
such good
you
advice.
do really well.
You do too. Like the snippets, I was going to say the snippets that you share on LinkedIn are so great. You know, it just makes me think, oh, Suzanne's got a new podcast episode out. I have to listen to that. So, and you're right, and that sort of saves your time as well, rather than thinking of, okay, what am I going to create now, like every day? There's actually so much that you can pull out from even one idea, and just write about it or create a video from it. I think also we're now in an era where people want to connect with people more deeper as well, more deeply. And so even just those sort of hopping on a story on Instagram story, or just sharing a little video where you're just chatting to the camera, it's quite, I think a lot of people, whether you're an operator or you're running noise or whatever, like it's quite overwhelming to show your face and to have the confidence to put yourself out there. But actually, those types of content formats are great to engage with people, and people feel connected to you as well.
And real life things, what's really going on behind the scenes. I love all of that
Yeah,
because
BTS.
you feel you're building trust. I was
Mm.
talking to someone the other day, and when you open a conversation, you ask them, "How are you?" And they
Mm.
go, "Oh, I'm great. I'm fantastic." Well, if you're the person that's not had a great day or a great week, you automatically clam up.
Mhm.
Whereas if they say, "Yeah, I'm all right. Could have had a better week," then you go, "Oh," and you just feel a lot more open and trusting, and the conversation just flows. So I think if people are themselves, honest and open, a lot more people will relate to that.
Absolutely. I've seen a real shift in a lot of influencers sort of having that approach, not just, showing the shiny bits of their lives and what they're doing, but that, like you said, behind the scenes, or just opening up about something that they're struggling with. We're all struggling with something, whether we want to share it or not. And I guess by sharing it, we're connecting with people. But on the other end, we've talked about boundaries a lot. You don't have to share those struggles as well. So it's completely up to them. But I guess in terms of the time that it takes to do marketing, does it eat up a lot of your time when you're running your business?
I say it takes 30-40% of my time. Certainly 30-40% of what's going on
Yeah.
in here. But
Yeah.
I'm always thinking of different themes. What are the revolving themes as a co-working operator or a micro business owner? that I'm going through that would be really important to someone else to understand a bit more about, and
Mm.
finding the solutions for those. So I try to map out like a 3 to 6 month structure of the themes I'm going to cover.
That's
Even if
brilliant.
I'm not putting details in there, it kind of helps me get my head around that.
That's so good as well, because there needs to be a strategy, really. I guess, when we're thinking about content, we need to connect it back to what we're doing. Otherwise, it's just a nice bit of content. It's not really, um, pushing the needle in terms of business and what we're trying to achieve as well. So that's important. Do you feature your community and your sort of people in your content as well?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, wherever I can. But I've also got to be conscious that a lot of people don't want that.
This is a real tricky thing, isn't it?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
Lucy, people within their teams, certain people within their teams might not want that. So you have to
Yes.
be very careful there.
And I think it's good to be careful as well, because I've been in situations like my gym, for example, like lovely gym, lovely people, but sometimes the social media manager will come in and just start filming us. And I'm like, I really don't want to be filmed right now. I'm sweaty and I look awful. And I can really understand that some people really don't want to be featured in content. There's lots of nuances around co-working spaces and why people use them. And they might not want somebody that they're connected to know that they're in a co-working space, or they might just not feel comfortable in front of the camera. There's so many reasons, and so I think it's really respectful to ask people before you film them, and I think you get that as well. So it's always a bit tricky, isn't it? Because when I've gone in to film some spaces, I'm trying to get like the backs of people's heads and things to show there are people here, but just being respectful of their identities and whether they want to
Yeah.
be.
And also then evergreen content, so contents that you can use into the future. You have to be really wary of members who have left
Mm.
and might not want to be featured in co-working space marketing anymore.
So true. Yeah. I guess like people who have maybe left like a few years ago and they're like, oh gosh, here I am again in so and so's marketing, which then in a sense, then you have to redo your content. You have to constantly, and it is such a consistent task as well. Like there's no end to marketing, especially when you're running a business that involves sort of constantly bringing people into the space and having that sort of pipeline of leads.
But we're lucky now in that we've got all these editing tools. Quite often you can take other bits of snippets from those videos. So
Hmm.
you've edited them out, and repurposing tools. And yeah, you've got AI. But I talk a little bit about AI and your views on that and how you should use it and shouldn't,
Oh,
and how you humanize things.
I had a big conversation with someone yesterday about this. He was like, I'm using AI to automate everything in my business. I was like, I really need to step up on AI. I think AI is definitely something we all need to embrace, because it is something that not only like is coming in thick and fast and is developing faster than light, and there's so many different tools available, but also and we don't want to get left behind. I think that's a really important point. But there's also an element of AI that we don't want to replace creativity completely. So as a writer, I'm kind of like really careful about those sorts of conversations around AI, and I do sort of defend the creator's role. And I think it's a shame that a lot of like artists and writers are their content's being sort of taken by AI, and they're not, they're not given that work anymore. But I do think we need to embrace it as well, because I think if we don't, then it's just going to change, and we're going to get left behind. And so the conversation I had with the guy, and it's also like there's so many people like this guy I spoke to yesterday, who's basically helps like automate people's businesses and builds like CRMs and things like that. It's like if he's doing all of that for these businesses and these businesses turning over loads of money, then there is that element of like, yeah, we've all got to sort of get on AI. But it is a challenging topic. I don't know if how much you use it in your sort of day to day.
I would use it. I would certainly use it every day for one element or another. I might use it in terms of marketing. I might use it to help me with the bones of a piece,
Hmm.
um, or structure, but I would always put really detailed human prompts in there to
Yeah.
start off with, and then go through it and tweak an awful lot and look at it from different perspectives.
And I think that's it, isn't it? Because ultimately, as much as you might use AI to, write me an article about my workspace, like you truly know your workspace more than anyone else. And so, yeah, there will be things in that content that you'll pick up on and go, okay, well, that's not quite right. Or actually, this goes. So I think that editing process is really like fundamental when you're using AI. It's like, okay, it is great for structure. It is great to like kind of overcome that writer's block and to put sort of words on a page, but the sort of refinement and making it personal and that connection piece as well is really important. I actually found since AI has developed a bit more and I do use it, when I am writing content, I just am now, I think, because kind of going back to what we're saying about like how people are using Instagram and video content and that sort of vulnerability piece and connection and sort of more casual conversations, I'm finding that I'm writing more that what's kind of in my mind and just like word vomiting it onto a page, and essentially that is like more conversational and more engaging
Yeah.
using AI to do a piece of content essentially.
It's almost like if you journal every day, it's almost like putting that out on a blog. You know, what are your innermost thoughts? You're right, it just feels a lot more conversational and natural and
That's
human.
natural. Yes, definitely. And so, yeah, I was going to ask you about the AI point as well. Um, but there are some tools that are really helpful, like Otter AI. I think we both use that. It's such a good tool to record conversations, and and I use that, and I kind of take transcripts from that because then I'm actually like recording somebody else's voice.
Hmm.
And so that then is more conversational in itself. Like I'm having a conversation with someone, I record it, and then I use that. That's what I use actually for my people make co-working content. It just makes that more conversational, but it also saves a lot of time as well. And I think that's a really important aspect of AI, especially when we're thinking about, if marketing takes 30 to 40% of our time, certainly takes a lot of my time. How can we sort of save our time? And I think this all goes back. I think a lot of the themes that we've talked about today are about energy and boundaries and things like
Yeah,
that.
and structure as well.
Yeah,
Just going back to what it also pulls the highlights from the conversation as well. And you could use each one of those highlights to write a blog, a post, a story. There's so many different ways you can use it. And it also gives you prompts for your to-dos, your follow-ups from that conversation as well.
yeah, I love that as well. So all those action points are so
And
helpful. Like,
yeah, and if you're going to do a podcast, it can help you write the questions, set the tone, can help you write the intro, the outro, and then your follow-up piece when you're going to post it as well.
yeah, that's so handy. I love using ChatGPT as well for those sorts of things. I always ask ChatGPT, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What's going to be the best approach for, like, I had two ideas for an Instagram post the other day, and I just said to ChatGPT, which one do you think is going to be the most engaging piece? And it said the one that I wasn't thinking about. And I was like, this is just really like interesting to get. It's almost like another team member. And I think I think it's like BBC or someone had posted about and shared an article that a lot of people who work by themselves are using chat gpt and and like engaging with chat gpt more than they would with another human being, which is quite frightening because I probably do that. I do have it open and I ask tons of questions, not just around work, but everything I'm asking chat gpt. I guess there is that danger of becoming too reliant on technology and where that sort of tech goes and that sort of security piece, but on the other hand, it is useful to bounce ideas off of it and
I
to
know, I'm the same. I even
yeah.
say please and thank you to
Yeah, it's hard to come out of that when before would have been talking to another human being. So it's
it.
very interesting. Okay, I feel like we've covered so much for the marketing piece. But yeah, there's definitely thinking about AI in your operations, using a channel format that sort of works best for you, and thinking about behind the scenes and featuring people in your content, but not but being respectful at the same time of your community.
Yeah, and keeping it real, be yourself. Do what
Absolutely.
works for you. Don't be a
Authentic.
martyr to every single platform.
Yes. Oh, yes. I'm such a believer in not spreading yourself too thin. I do not use, like, all my friends are on Strava, for example, and I'm like, I know that's not a work platform, but I'm like, I don't need another social media channel in my life. Like, it's lovely, like, that everyone's checking out their runs and seeing what each other up to. I'm like, I don't need this. But you're right with the work stuff as well. Now we've got so much more, you know, we've got Instagram, we've also got Threads, and we've got Blue Sky, and we've got LinkedIn and Facebook groups and Facebook messaging and all these different channels. And so do you have any favorite channels that you use to kind of connect with your community?
LinkedIn, all the way, yeah. Probably LinkedIn, Instagram. I've started on Substack a bit, but LinkedIn would be my main one.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm.
I've actually fallen out of love with LinkedIn a little bit. The algorithm is a bit annoying. But I think that I've been using Instagram quite a bit recently. And I think that's just because it's, again, I think it's tapping into what works best for you. Like, love the creativity and the kind of possibilities of Instagram.
Yeah, it's more natural, I think.
Yeah, I think there's something. I was really hesitant to join Instagram for business purposes for a really, really long time. But I bit the bullet last month because I just kept thinking, oh, I should share that to, if I had work Instagram, I would share that to it. And then I suddenly was like, do you know what? I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And actually, I've loved, and I spend more time on that one because almost with my personal one, the people who I want to see and hear from, I text and see them anyway. So I'm not really using that one as much as my work one. Anyway, I digress because I feel like we could talk about this topic for ages. But yes, we've got lots of important kind of thoughts from the marketing piece. So our last section is on the loneliness of leadership. I think we tapped into loneliness a little bit earlier and around how much how much is involved, obviously, in running a co-working business. So this role can be really isolating, especially for operators who are based outside of big cities. How does that loneliness show up, and what helps?
I think a lot of small business owners say it can be a lonely place because they feel they have to carry a lot of the worries, and they're holding so much space for their members that they don't really want to divulge all their own concerns. Um, and I think a lot of operators in the local neighborhood spaces don't feel they can speak openly to other operators. They feel like it's
Interesting.
more competitive than perhaps in the bigger cities where you would get more peer groups meeting up. I don't know why that is, but I've certainly felt it myself in the past where you've tried to open up to other operators, but they're not necessarily um, what's the word? I can't even think of the word. They don't feel the love back.
They're not receptive.
Not so much now, but certainly a few years ago it felt like that.
That's really
And I think you feel more threatened in smaller local spaces because it is such a small ecosystem. You feel more threatened that it's going to really affect your business and impact it until you understand that other uh, co-working space provider and who they're going to appeal to and that side of things.
Yeah, that's so true because actually, you know, different spaces are sort of attracting different people and serve different people in different ways as well. I think certainly in London there seems to be a bit more collaboration in there where if a team came to a space, well, I don't know because I'm maybe not in it, but that, you know, if there was, I think when I'm thinking about the space that I was part of, they were sort of connected to other spaces in a way. And so if there was a team that came to that space and it wasn't quite the right fit, then they would send them to the other space as well. But I guess in your region, that can be a little bit difficult because, like you said, that's sort of like you're losing business. And I think, but then, yeah, it's those different needs, isn't it? And different
Yeah.
audiences.
And also for us, because we're right on the border, we have to navigate different jurisdictions. So we've got the Republic of Ireland, we've got Northern Ireland, Stormont, and then we've got the UK Westminster government. So, and there's also all the red tape that goes with that. They're all different. So certainly during COVID, that was an absolute nightmare for us. We didn't quite know where we stood there. But I think the other thing, Lucy, is you're quite cut off from a lot of the peer networking events as well. So there's loads of things going on in the UK or Europe that I'd love to go to, but costs, you've got to stay over, you've got to get the flights. It's quite preventative sometimes. And you do feel cut off from people that you might network with online. You really want to go and see, but it's not always possible for time, money reasons.
Yeah, have there been many events for you in Ireland? You mentioned that Coworking Europe came to Ireland.
Yeah, a
Uh,
few years ago, then there's Connected Hubs as well.
mm.
They've got a summit coming up next month, actually, in Galway. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's massive now. Um, yeah, and then there's also, I mentioned the carrying responsibility for members. And without peers to share that with, that can be quite hard. So I think it's really, really important we keep coming back to having those champions and the peer network.
Yeah, definitely. But like you said, there's that challenge of not always being able to connect with them or see them because of the fact that it's expensive to get somewhere. Although I guess now we have so much available online, and we talked about sort of Bernie's event, which is an online monthly event earlier. That is super helpful for you. Surely that you can speak
Yeah.
to people
Oh, God, yeah. It's a
anonymous.
lifesaver.
And you said yeah, LinkedIn as well. That sort of like
Mm.
that LinkedIn is really good for connecting with people that you might never meet. Like there
Yeah.
could be
And keeping up to date as well with stuff
that.
that's evolving.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's great for that. I feel like our industry is really good at sharing on LinkedIn as well. But yes, and of course, you know, that's all well and good, but no one really wants to be stuck to a screen all day. And there is that element of like wanting to meet IRL and physical as well. So I can imagine that disconnection and that loneliness can really show up. Especially, I think we've spoken about before, you know, you mentioned that perhaps in the summertime it's quite quiet in your space. So when you do have those quiet periods, how do you, I guess, juggle between having to be present in your space, but also looking after yourself and making sure that you're not lonely and isolated in that kind of circumstance?
And juggling kids in the summer holidays as well.
Yeah.
Which in Ireland is no joke because they're off nearly 12 weeks.
Oh my God.
Um, yeah, mine are a bit older now, so it's okay.
Yeah.
The problems just get bigger and more expensive, but we'll just deal with that. So yeah, I think it's keeping that structure and
Mm,
the boundaries and really grasping the online networking opportunities where you can, because they're few and far between in the summer,
mm,
and checking in with your mentors, etc. Because there's always the phone, there's always Zoom. To
yeah.
just keep talking to people and sharing.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. We've got alliances, coaching and mentoring, and those sort of peer networks as well.
Yeah, because I can lose quite a lot of confidence in the summer if I don't keep checking in with people because there's not as many people around work, and you're naturally pulled away from a lot of your routine. So you
Mm,
do feel a bit all over the place. I think that's only natural. A lot of people feel like that. And you have to go with it sometimes. You just have to let it happen
that's
and
really,
feel those up and down emotions.
yeah. Why is that specific to the summer, do you think?
People are away,
Yeah,
just different reasons. Team members aren't necessarily there. I think they just juggle their routines and change things up. If children, parental responsibilities, family responsibilities.
so true. And you mentioned the fact that there's not as many events happening either, which I guess can be challenging. Yeah, August seems to be that time where lots of people go on holiday, but not everyone goes away in August. And when you are sort of like, I know certainly this year I was like focused work mode in August, and then there's no events to go to. It can be quite challenging. And I think another thing around the summer is the weather as well. Like, I don't know if
Mm.
this is because we've talked about like that sort of introversion and sort of being in touch with our emotions a bit more. I'm very much sensitive to the weather, and like when it's sunny and hot I want to be outside, and that can be quite challenging when you know, when you're running a business, and I can imagine for you as well, like you must spend quite a lot of time inside, although you do have a garden I saw in your
Yeah, we've
so
got a roof garden.
yeah, which must make
Although
sense.
Lucy, we do live in Ireland, so we're not party to quite as much sun as you.
I know, I get that. Like, yeah, when we were in Scotland, it's there wasn't really a summer, but so maybe I'm making the most of it when I'm in London. But yeah, that sort of yeah, kind of juggle between, and again, that's that social piece as well, and how much time you want to spend for your community and things like that. But I think you sort of hit the nail on the head. You know, the sort of theme of this conversation is all these different challenges and tasks, and the juggle of managing and operating a space means that loneliness piece really kind of comes in sometimes.
Mm, yeah, I think it's right. It's a very personal thing as to how you deal with that.
Mm, definitely. Do you have any kind of final piece of advice for operators?
I think actually it's knowing the trigger signs of when you might be dipping down that curve.
Yeah.
How does it come out in your body? And really tuning into that, and then having management techniques to pull you out the other side and keeping your battery high, tipped up, topped up, not tipped up.
Topped up, not tipping. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And just keep checking in with people.
Yeah.
So you have people to share that angst with and pull you up the other side.
Yeah. Such good advice. So we've talked about 5 of the biggest weights co-working leaders carry: the invisible load, community challenges, money pressures, juggling hats, and loneliness. The good news is there are practical ways through each of them.
Mm-hmm. And I think a big thing is make sure you realize you're not on your own. Whether you're running a space or you're managing this alongside another business, you can always reach out to me or Lucy. And there's lots of other wonderful champions in the co-working world. Start with one small shift, always baby steps. Don't take that huge leap, because that can just overwhelm you from my experience. And don't wait until you're on the edge of burnout to make changes or ask for help. Just, shout and share, and there's always someone to help you out.
100%. And if you'd like more tailored support, Suzanne's coaching and resources are designed for exactly this: the hidden pressures of neighbourhood co-working leadership. We're going to pop some links below as well. And do check out the Inclusive Co-worker on Substack too. So we'll put all these links below, and more talking about the content side, there'll be more content as well. So thank you for watching and have a great day.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Don't forget that all the episodes and links are out there on our website, thehubnewry.com. While you're there, you can stay tuned in with what we're up to by joining our newsletter and subscribing to Powering Productivity on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for being here. Powering Productivity is presented by me, Suzanne Murdoch, and produced by Emily Crosby Media.